This is what I'm working on today. It's a dresser and a nightstand and a bed frame from Room and Board. And as you can see, they're in pretty rough shape, mostly just the tops, although the drawer fronts do also have some wear. So I think these are cherry and solid cherry. I looked these up on the Room and Board website, and I found what appeared to be the same pieces, although I think these are at least 10 years old. So this may not be accurate info, but on the website it described the finish as oil and wax, which could mean a lot. I mean, there's a lot of different ways you could do an oil and wax finish. I don't know what they use, but it seems like it's not a film finish on here like lacquer or polyurethane. So there's not a lot to strip off. And that also may be why the tops got so bad, because there just wasn't a lot of protection being provided by the oil and wax finish. So I don't think I need to use any stripper on here or do any scraping to remove finish, because there's just not really any finish on it as far as I can tell. So I think we're going to start on the tops just by doing some hand sanding to see what kind of progress I can make with that. After doing a little bit of sanding on the tops, I wet the surface down with some naphtha just to see how it was coming along, and it looked great.
Well, that looks great.
That beautiful cherry color was exposed. So I decided to continue sanding all of the surfaces, but only as much as I needed to. Cherry gets that rich color over time, and I wanted to make sure not to sand through that color and into the lighter, newer wood below it. The footboard had an issue I wanted to fix before I started sanding it. One of the legs was very loose and about to fall off, and there was a small crack. It looked like it was being held on mostly by nails that were put in there from the factory. You can see there are some nails in here. I don't know if there's even any glue in there, but let's see if I can get this off. Nope. So this doesn't really seem like the best joint. Doesn't look like there was any glue in here except for maybe around here. But even if there was, there's just not a lot of surface area to glue to. Seems like it's relying mostly on the nails. But the other side is fine. The other side's solid, so I guess it works. Well, until it doesn't. Before I put the whole joint back together, whoops, I want to re-glue this piece here. And I'm going to use super glue because there's really no way for me to clamp this easily because it's round. So super glue I won't need to clamp. Yes, I should really have a glove on, but I don't. Okay, I'll scrape off any excess super glue that's squeezed out on this side. And while I'm at it, I'll remove any glue remnants from the factory. So it feels like there's a little bit of dried glue here from the factory, so I'll scrape that off. And I'll apply new glue when I put it together. The dresser also had a repair that needed to be made. One corner was separating. And this is probably going to be really hard to see on camera, but you can just barely see that there's a dowel in here holding these pieces together. Well, I'm sure there's a few dowels in there. I don't see any evidence of any fasteners, like screws or nails or anything. So it's probably just glued together with dowels. But the rest of it is all solid. The rest of this top is all solid. It's just this one corner. So it doesn't really make sense to try to take the whole thing off and re-glue it. So I'm just going to try to take a glue syringe and shoot some glue in there as much as I can get in there and then clamp it and see how that works. There were also a few dents in the wood that I wanted to try and steam out using a soldering iron and some water. That looks a lot better. And there were a couple of more dents here to steam out. Well, that one feels better already. Well, this one is pretty much all gone. This one is mostly gone over here. There's still a little bit of a line there. And this has come up here, but I think it looks better than it did. So this is the knob for the small nightstand. And it's got this little threaded insert that's supposed to go in the end. It's kind of hard to get it in there just with your fingers. So I'm just taking this and I'm gonna put this nut on it. I found an appropriately sized nut. Use that as a stop and then thread this onto here and then press that up against that insert. And then now I can use the screw to screw that insert in. I want to make sure I get it straight. Now I just have to back that nut off and then I can take the screw out. And there it is. With all of the repairs and the sanding done, I decided to take a field trip to the local room and board. I wanted to see if I could find these pieces in the store to see what they would have looked like originally. I couldn't find the dresser or the bed frame, but I did find the nightstand. And it did certainly look like it had a wax oil finish. And by that I mean it looked like it had no finish on it, really. and it felt good. It was nice and smooth and silky and had that unfinished look. But for the new finish on these pieces, I'm going to go with something a little more durable and use a polyurethane finish. Before I apply the polyurethane top coat, I'm spraying on a sealer coat of shellac. I like to do this sometimes because it will seal the wood, and that way it won't absorb as much of the polyurethane top coat, and so I won't need to apply as many coats of the polyurethane, which is handy because the polyurethane takes a long time to dry, whereas the shellac only takes a few minutes. For the top coat, I'm using an oil-based wipe-on satin polyurethane. And you can buy a can of wipe-on poly, but I sometimes just make it myself. I'll just take a can of regular polyurethane and replace half of the polyurethane with just straight mineral spirits, so it just thins it out. The pre-made wipe-on poly you can buy is fine. It's just that there's usually more in the can than I can use before it goes bad, so sometimes I'll just make my own. Once the poly was dry, I went over it with some fine steel wool and wax for the finishing touch. And here it is, all finished. Thanks for watching. Just brought home my latest find. Just brought home my latest find. Just brought home my latest see how it goes. Just brought home my latest find. Just brought home my latest find. Just brought home my latest find. And I think this piece kind of looks a bit chunky. Think this piece kind of looks a bit chunky. Think this piece kind of looks a bit chunky. Chunky, 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 chunky. Just brought home my latest find.